Hello everyone, and welcome to my Simple Affordable Eatable series. Today we're going to be talking about herbs and spices and seasonings. I have everybody separated into different groups today because we're going to be going through a list of these different ingredients that I do have that I've kind of stockpiled over time. And we're going to talk a little bit about each one and what they're used for. Firstly, we're going to start with seasonings, the most important of which are salt and pepper. Salt, sodium chloride, table salt, very important in your diet because you need it in order to, turn food. You need sodium and chlorine in order to turn food into energy, to my understanding. And also, it unlocks your tongue so that your tongue can taste stuff when you put food inside your mouth, if you want to be really simple like that. There's not a whole lot to say about salt by itself, other than the fact that there's 5 milligrams of salt in a teaspoon. And the U.S. Department of Health recommends we only eat foods that have a maximum per day of 5,000 milligrams of salt. That's a lot of salt. That's like a cup of salt a day. I don't recommend near that much. I recommend maybe 4 tablespoons of salt a day at the most. Not that it matters, because I don't have a degree in any kind of health field. But I'm just saying, if you want your blood pressure to be in proper working order, I would sooner say just about 4 tablespoons of salt is even excessive in and of itself. But regardless, that's all there really is for me to say about salt. I do have here some garlic salt that I use for, just for flavoring things that need that extra oomph that salt just won't do. Particularly meats and vegetables I put this on. This does not contain any monosodium glutamate, excuse me for dropping that. So it won't give you a headache if you have problems with that. It's got parsley and garlic in it. Really good on grilled meats. I don't usually use this a whole lot. I've had this for quite some time. However, the nice thing about salt is that salt just does not expire. Ever. Ever, ever. It will never expire. You can pass it down from generation to generation if you really wanted to, and it will not expire. This says right here, used by November 14th, 2011. I don't really care about that. You want to know why? Because that's just because this particular salt does not have near as much oomph as it did when we got it out of the bottle, or first bought it. But that's just because over time things do become less savory. Salt will become less savory over time, and it'll just kind of taste like rocks eventually. But that is pretty sure to not happen in any of your lifetime unless you live about 150, 200 years, which I don't count on that happening. So, enough about salt. We're going to move on to pepper. Pepper is even more widely used than salt is, believe it or not. It is the most widely traded spice on the planet, making up for about 20 to 40% at any given time of the world's spice trade. Now, as you see here, these are nice little peppercorns. These are black peppercorns, which means that they were unripened peppercorns. They were green when they first came off of the plant, off that little pod that they grow on. Then they were blanched in water and dried, usually in the sun. This is the most common form of pepper used on the planet. Matter of fact, in Asian cuisine, however, they do use white pepper a lot more. White pepper are the dried, ripe peppercorns of the pepper plant. Just some interesting things about pepper is that pepper was used in helping to embalm people in ancient Egypt when they passed away, and also in post-classical Europe, meaning in the very early part of the AD, probably 180 to 700. This was used as currency because it was so rare to grow in Europe. It was only really grown in usually the Indian subcontinent and places around there, in the Southwest Asia. And it was also something that usually only the rich could afford. Now it's nearly something that everybody can afford, which is really cool. I love it. I love freshly ground black pepper, which is why I have this little guy here. This is a bamboo mortar and pestle. Why do I keep my peppercorns whole? And why do I keep them in a crock? Because they stay fresh longer, and when I crack them freshly right before I use them, they taste a whole lot better. Okay, so that's enough about that. Is well, not quite enough about that. Just one more thing is that Vietnam is the largest producer of peppercorns. So thank Vietnam for producing most of the peppercorns that are found inside your peppercorn bottles. Next, we have allspice. Whoops, that is not allspice. That is curry powder. This is allspice. This is not in the pepper family. This is in the myrtle family. The myrtle family has plants like guava and clove and eucalyptus. The other names for this that we don't really usually find in America are Jamaica pepper, myrtle pepper, pimenta, which to us a pimenta is something completely different. However, that was the name for it. New spice, or used to actually be just called pepper, believe it or not, at one point. It has a slightly peppery flavor. The name allspice that you see on this bottle here only really came around to be in 1621 because the English thought that it combined the flavors of cinnamon, clove, and nutmeg. These are unripe seeds. They are sun-dried. And the fresh leaves of this plant, funny enough, they taste a lot like bay and can be used a lot like bay. They have a similar flavor. Allspice is very ubiquitously used in the Caribbean, which is also possibly why we use it a lot in this deep south where I'm from. A lot of times they're used in barbecue sauces and so on and so forth. But I'll talk more about barbecue sauce on a different episode of this. Let's see. One more thing. So, like eucalyptus, these ground up seeds, they can, in a pinch, funny enough, be used as a deodorant. Eugenol has antimicrobial properties. This particular plant, the allspice plant, usually the trees that are grown on farms, they're about 30 to 60 feet high. However, if you can get your hands on some allspice seeds, they grow really well in containers. So if you can happen to find some allspice berries online, I would more than encourage you to see about growing it in a container, seeing what happens. Just make sure that you keep it in a nice area, humid. You keep it spritzed with water, and also make sure that it gets plenty of sunlight, as with any other plant that you may use. Okay. Our next little thing that we're going to talk about is fennel. Now these fennel seeds, kind of hard to see. They look a lot like coriander and not coriander, but cumin seeds. Excuse me. Funny enough, because cumin and fennel, they're in the same family, called the anise family. Anise is slightly licoricey tasting. Here, you might be able to see them just a little bit better in here. They're little oblong shaped seeds. A lot of the time, these are best if you roast them in a pan with no oil or anything like that. Sometimes people use oil. I don't use oil when I roast them in a pan, because otherwise you're going to fry them, and then you're going to have a burnt seed. If you roast them in a pan, it'll release the oils, but you need to use them right away. Otherwise, the flavor of the oils will just vanish into thin air, and you just taken all that flavor out of the seed for no reason. This is native to the Mediterranean. These seeds are. The native to the Mediterranean basin, funny enough, are used very ubiquitously in the Mediterranean cuisines, and as well as the Middle East. If you grind them up, they're really good with fish, and even not ground up, they're very good with fish and eggs and salads. They go very well in as well. Apparently, some of the medicinal qualities of this, aside from its nice culinary uses, that it's very sweet, not very sweet, but has a sweet kind of licoricey taste. It also helps with vision. Supposedly a study from, I think, the United Kingdom said that it helps inhibit glaucoma. It also helps inhibit gas, but the problem with that is that when it inhibits gas, it induces heartburn. So if you take some Tums and use plenty of these in your cooking, you'll be good to go if you have no gallbladder like me. As well, there was one study that came out from the United Kingdom that said that it might help in hypertension. Hypertension meaning high blood pressure. So if you're using a lot of this salt in your cooking, you might as well use a lot of this. The next thing that we have is sage. This is rubbed sage. You can get whole leaves as well. It's in the mint family, sages, which makes perfect sense because it tastes kind of minty. In British cuisine and southern cuisine, I am from the deep south, as I'm sure you can no doubt tell. We use this a lot with pork and chicken. Use it a lot with pork and chicken. And I haven't found any medicinal properties that are good with this, other than the fact that since it's in the mint family, it's very possible that it might help with alleviating pain, but I don't think the chemical properties in it are near strong enough as normal mint itself would be. Regardless, it says right here even, add this sharp, warm flavor to liven meat, seafood, salads, breads, and cheese. I think that it probably goes best with pork and chicken, not seafood. We'll get into that in a minute. Then we've got tarragon. The container that this came in was so teeny tiny that I just poured it into a glass container I bought from the dollar store. This tarragon looks a lot like mint leaves and actually has a mint sort of smell. It also has it's kind of a cross between licorice and mint, or anise and mint. It's in the daisy family, but it tastes like two completely different families. However, if you've ever smelled a daisy, it smells a lot like the it's less polleny, but kind of the essence of what a daisy would smell like. The French use this all the time. On pork, fish, chicken, eggs, not usually used in meats because it's kind of delicate. There are two varieties of this that are used in culinary aspects. There's the Russian variety and the French variety. One way you can tell whether it's the Russian variety or the French variety is how strong the flavor is. This is clearly the Russian variety because this was only $2 for, 4 tablespoons of this stuff. Whereas the French variety is about $8 for a whole thing full of it, but it's still a whole lot stronger than the Russian variety. I'd have to use nearly all of this just to get some flavor out of it. However, if you are unfortunate enough, like me, to have the Russian variety that's closest to you, because sometimes tarragon can be kind of hard to find, take a little bit of the leaves, rub them between your fingers. That will help heat them up and heat the oils and kind of mimic the roasting effect, so to speak, making a facsimile of what you would do to the fennel seeds. Then you put it over your pork or your chicken or whatever it is that you're going to put it over. Deviled eggs. Really good inside deviled eggs, by the way. We're going to move right along. I've got two varieties here of paprika. Paprika is expensive, usually. Smoked paprika is even more expensive than non-smoked paprika. Why? Because paprika comes from the skins of the ground dried skins of a chili family. If they are smoking the paprika, it's going to take them even longer to produce, and it's going to be more time consuming, therefore being more expensive. This was extremely cheap. Matter of fact, this was only $1. It's probably from a very low grade version of the chili or the piment from probably South America someplace, where they probably don't pay people very much to do this. As sad as I am to say it, that's very much the case. This dollar store paprika adds virtually no taste, but a whole heck of a lot of color. Whereas this was rather expensive. Cost you about $9. This will. You could, but it's very, very flavorful, very good quality. Probably imported. It's very likely that it's imported. I know that this particular brand tends to import a lot of their stuff. That's why they're so expensive. But this goes very well on chicken. I have a thing about smoked paprika and chicken. Chicken thighs with smoked paprika that are cooked over potatoes. Alton Brown had a recipe about that you can find online. So I'll spare you the discourse on that. Another funny thing about paprika is that it is in the same family as tomatoes, potatoes, eggplant, and funny enough, tobacco. Tastes a whole lot better though. Next in line we have mustard. This is from the ground seeds of the mustard plant. Mustard, a lot of plants that are named mustard. This is probably just your typical flowering mustard plant from Europe. They grind the seeds up and they make it into a nice little powder like this. You'll see in the cabbage family, this particular plant's in the cabbage family. A lot of spicy leafy plants in this particular family. Matter of fact, you can even use mustard greens. Mustard greens very well with rancid salt pork. Go very well together. Turnips and radishes The radish greens also have an extremely similar flavor to mustard. Ground mustard, very commonly used in Southwest Asia. Paprika, funny enough, going back to that for just 1 second, I forgot to tell you, very commonly used all over Eastern Europe. This used very commonly in Southwest Asia. The next thing we have here, in the same vein of Southwest Asia, we have curry powder. This curry powder is a blend of coriander, fenugreek, turmeric, cumin, black pepper, bay leaves, celery, nutmeg, cloves, onions, red pepper, and ginger. Kind of on the sweet side. I have another curry powder still in my cupboard that's it's got a lot more red pepper flakes in it. A lot more deep brown color. And has a lot more turmeric in it as well. A lot more spicy. This is a nice sweet one. Curry is a British invention, on the contrary to your popular belief. It is not an Indian invention. It is an occurrence of the British trying to make something similar to what a lot of the spices that were being exported from India to Britain at the time. As a result of this, there have been a lot of Indian restaurants that have been just basically using the curry powder, as a particular, one spice. It's not really one spice. There is a curry leaf, but it's not quite the same thing. Goes very well with chicken and turkey, especially in a soup. I love curry powder in a dish called chicken divin, which is very cheap to make, that I'm going to actually show you how to make before too long. Matter of fact, it's going to be very soon here that I'm going to be showing us how to make that. Now, last but not least, as far as the herbs, spices, and things go, we have the bay leaf. You can use this in nearly anything that you make. Ground bay, or usually you can sprinkle it on things just like you can tarragon. Has a very nice, pleasant, mild flavor. These particular bay leaves are not the bay laurel, because that is the French variety, as they say, of the bay leaf. These are the California bay laurel. The California bay laurel have just a very different taste than the normal bay laurel leaves. It's in the same family as cinnamon and avocado, believe it or not. And cinnamon, the reason why this doesn't have a cinnamony taste is because cinnamon is from the bark of the tree. This is the leaf. Avocado is also in this family as well. These are the three most well-known genres in this family. If you do the whole leaves, I would use those in soups. If you want to grind them up and use them in other things, as a general rule, you probably wouldn't just crack these open and kind of rub them in your fingers and so forth and just put them on. You would need to actually grind these up, because they're not very easy to digest. I can't imagine anything much more painful than maybe this or a Dorito stuck in your gastrointestinal tract. So make sure that if you're going to sprinkle this on stuff, grind it up very finely. Now, we've come to the last little bit that I usually don't like to talk about, and this is pre-packaged, pre-bottled mixed herbs. I admit I am guilty of using these on innumerable occasions, just because of the fact that, well, these two particular ones I bought from a very reputable place, and they are very good. They are imported, and they were not very expensive. $5 for this and for this one, and $5 for this one. Two completely different tastes, very, very good. I can use these in almost about anything if I've run out of my other herbs and spices and so forth. This is from, I won't tell you the name of the store, but this is from your friendly neighborhood, everyday low prices place. Already mixed. I wouldn't say that this is useful in anything other than maybe braised lettuce. Braised lettuce, probably the only thing I would feel good about using it in. As a matter of fact, that is actually the only thing that I use this in, is braised lettuce. Very, very cheap, 68 cents for a whole package of it. It was full up to here when I bought it. This, however, on the other hand, Italian seasoning and herbes de Provence. Italian seasoning, a lot of basil, garlic, marjoram, rosemary, sage, savory, and thyme, and sometimes chili peppers ground up in here. If you get the dollar store variety, usually it's just thyme and oregano, which is fine, nothing wrong with that. Thyme and oregano, you can usually use those in just about anything. Thyme, you know how tarragon goes very well on the light white meat dishes. Thyme is actually very good with that, and it's also good with red meat dishes as well, because thyme is unlike any other herb. It retains its flavor so well, even when dried and ground up. That's why it's so popular in just Western cuisine all over Europe, particularly in Greece and Italy. They use thyme a lot, and which very well may be why this is called Italian seasoning. However, you will never find a bottled Italian seasoning like this in Italy, ever. Herbes de Provence. The Provence area is very fish rich, and as I said before, fennel goes very well in fish. This has fennel in it, ground up fennel. It also has basil, thyme, marjoram, sage, and lavender. Funny enough, I think that it's kind of weird that they put sage in here, because this is supposed to be Provençal. Sage is not very commonly used in France at all, really. Maybe savory might be more of an option that would be more authentic. This goes extremely well with grilled and baked meats, any kind. It also goes very well over salads. The lavender just does something that is unlike any other thing that you could ever think about. I guess it's calming, and that might be calming to your taste buds. I'm not exactly sure, but if you take a steak and you rub olive oil on it, and then you rub some of this on it and grill it over a hot fire or bake it in the oven, your mouth will water for days. So we have basically talked about everything that you would really need, which is, right here. I've got a whole lot of these things just because I've accumulated them over time. When I have dollars here and a few dollars there, I go take some time and walk around and do some reading online to see what may or may not be best for whatever I happen to be cooking that day. I would honestly say that if you want one herb and two spices that you would be able to use in any application, I would say that salt, pepper, and parsley. Freshly chopped parsley. Those are probably the two seasonings, and it's a seasoning. Salt is a seasoning, pepper is a spice, and parsley is an herb. Those are the three things that you can use in just about any dish if you are tight on money and you want to make something go farther and taste kind of like you have people coming over and you want them to really know that you care about them. Those are the three things you can use. I hope I was able to help you today by telling you more about these herbs and spices and what they're used for and where they come from. And I hope that you'll watch us next time.